what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy the
quarterbacks in the transfer portal. And yesterday was a big day. Yeah, Cal McCord, Ohio State, they're getting ready to play a Cotton Bowl against Mizzou. He puts himself into the portal. A lot of people asking the question, why? One of the things that a lot of people assume that it is one of these other quarterbacks in the transfer portal, well, probably has his eyes set on Columbus and probably, is leaning towards the Buckeyes. Maybe Kyle McCord gets wind of that, maybe has conversations with the coaches, and maybe he decides to put himself into the portal. You don't see a lot of 11-1 quarterbacks in the Big Ten after starting the entire season put themselves in the portal, but obviously we're in a different time in college football. One of those quarterbacks that's been attached to Ohio State is Cam Ward from Washington State. He was a top 5 passer in the country as far as yards. He's a dual threat kind of guy. Now, he can throw any route in the route tree, but he does have the ability to run. So when we say dual threat, don't get that confused with he's a runner. He is somebody that can make plays with both his arms and, just one arm. I mean, he probably could, put in his left hand and maybe run the football, but he can do it both ways, arm and legs there. So maybe that's a situation that played out in Columbus. We don't know that. We'll certainly find out over the next couple of days because yesterday was that day that it became officially official for the transfer portal. Another name we talked about, Dillon Gabriel. Now, he's been tied to Oregon. He's been tied to Mississippi State. That makes all the sense in the world. Now, you could ask, why would you go from Oklahoma to Mississippi State? Well, remember, Jeff Lebby, 2019, was with Dillon Gabriel his freshman year at UCF where he threw for 3,600 yards. So he had a lot of success with Jeff Lebby down in Orlando. Then he goes to Oklahoma when Jeff Lebby finds his way there after his Ole Miss stint, and he had, his best year of his career this year. Last year was injured, didn't play a full season. So, okay, not a lot of people, and that's not throwing shade at Mississippi State. That's just it is what it is, right? Oklahoma, big brand, national brand. Why would you leave to go somewhere that a lot of people would consider a smaller school? Well, because you've had your best years with Jeff Lebby. And so if you want to continue that, maybe continue to improve your draft stock, then that's what you do. So we'll watch that one to see if that plays out because that could be another big name going to a new place in the SEC because, Oklahoma's going to be in the SEC next year. Tyler Bugner, I know Taylor appreciated this story. So he's actually committed back to Notre Dame, except it's not Taylor going to be in football.
No, he's in the transfer portal as a lacrosse player. And I don't know if that's ever happened where a guy entered the portal to change schools and sports. But it was funny. The Alabama lacrosse team had a little bit of fun with it yesterday. They were like, why leave? Why don't you just stay here and play lacrosse for us? It was a fun little thing by their social media page. I've never seen that before. But, me and Mario were talking about it. It's like, do you see him in the South Florida game? Like, he probably should go play lacrosse. But he's apparently really good at it in high school. So,
oh yeah, he was committed to Michigan in 8th grade. I saw for lacrosse. Does Alabama have lacrosse?
They had an Alabama lacrosse Twitter
Gotta
page.
be club.
I'm sure it's a club sport. Yeah.
I know like Kentucky and Florida have men's soccer, and they play. God, they've played in the Big East. They might have played in Coosa as well. I know that they'll obviously play in the SEC. We don't have men's soccer in the SEC, but I thought, maybe as a situation like that, probably a club sport. I think he has higher aspirations for his lacrosse career. Nothing wrong with club lacrosse, but if you were committed to Michigan in the 8th grade, you're probably pretty good at lacrosse.
I know Syracuse is usually really good. That's like the
North
extent
Carolina,
of my lacrosse knowledge.
Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia, Duke.
James Madison feels like they're probably good. Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, they're probably good at it, right?
Either of y'all or anybody in the chat ever play lacrosse competitively?
No, it looks
seems
hard.
Like it looks really difficult.
It looks very difficult.
It wasn't even available for us in high school.
I don't even know where you could play.
Right when I was leaving high school, some of the bigger 5A schools in Shreveport were like testing it out, like putting their toe in the water kind of like to see if they had enough interest to have a lacrosse team. I know, I think New Orleans maybe there's a couple of the Catholic schools that.
Yeah, Brother Martin has a good lacrosse
I'm sure
program.
Catholic has lacrosse. I'm sure they're good at it too. I don't know.
I watched.
That's about all I got.
Nah, Brother Martin was solid. I watched a few of the games during Saturday detention. Like whenever they were too
What?
lazy to make us do stuff, we would just
Why are you in detention?
stupid stuff, having your shoes untied, Brother Martin stuff.
Wait. You had to go to Saturday detention for having your shoes untied?
Yes, in fairness to the disciplinarian, he had to tell me twice, but that is an actual thing that happened Saturday school for shoes untied.
Did you have to go for your shirt untucked as well?
Probably, yeah. If you're a multiple-time offender, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, we'll have to unpack that during one of the breaks. Quarterback transfer news that could potentially involve LSU here. MJ Morris, North Carolina State quarterback, put himself in the portal a couple days ago. He's been attached to LSU as far as interest from both parties. Now, it doesn't mean he's coming here. It doesn't mean he's committed. It just means that there is interest from both LSU and MJ Morris. If you're wondering who that is, he's a quarterback that played in 4 games a year ago. Now, if you ask why he only played in 4 games, because he wanted to save his red shirt. After, I guess, he kind of saw the way the season was going, he wanted to make sure that he had another year. Now, he was the guy for those 4 games. Against Miami, 11 of 21, 123 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Against Clemson, in a win, by the way, against Miami, and a win against Clemson as well, 11 of 20, 138, 2 touchdowns. Against Duke, 24 of 40, 193 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. And against Marshall, 17 of 32, 265, 4 tuds, and 3 picks. So MJ Morris finished the year 719 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Now, this is somebody that, if you're bringing in a transfer quarterback to add competition, to bring in a quarterback that does something different than Garrett Nussmeier, not the same quarterback, that's kind of what we talked about. Like, if you brought a guy in, it felt like, and y'all correct me if y'all had a different thought process, but when we were talking about it, maybe last week, 2 weeks ago when T-Bob was here, if you brought in a guy, it was probably going to be someone like this. I mean, you could go back and check the tape. We said it's probably going to be somebody that started games in college, probably not a superstar, probably somebody that you felt was very solid, right? So you kind of tell Garrett Nussmeier, hey, you're our guy. Now we've got this other guy that started games in a Power 5 conference, so you got to come to work every single day, like Garrett Nussmeier has his entire career. But just to have a veteran guy there, you push your starter a little bit in training camp, and then if something happens, right, Garrett Nussmeier, knock on wood, gets hurt. If Garrett Nussmeier, for whatever reason, isn't playing the way that you thought he was going to play, if he, gets hit and is out for 2 series, whatever it might be, like, this is the kind of quarterback that we talked about bringing in. And there's probably going to be other names attached to LSU. We don't know those names, but this is the first one that I've seen LSU's name attached to, and it's kind of in the mold that we thought it would be. Again, a guy that's gone out and, been a starter, had some good numbers, nothing super solid, but, been competitive, goes out there, beats Miami, beats Clemson. Duke was a game that got away from them incredibly early, and they didn't play well in that game, but this always kind of felt like the kind of guy that you were going to bring in. If you go back to 2022, to kind of give you an idea of who he was in that season, those for 648, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. So those numbers went up to interceptions, and remember, he threw 3 in the Marshall game alone, but this always felt like the direction that you were going to go in. So we'll pay attention, see if that continues to grow legs there. But correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Is that kind of what you thought LSU would be after? Again, like, if you're talking like superstar quarterback and that's who you go after, that would surprise me if you did. A lot of teams are going after superstar quarterbacks. I mean, Kyle McCord is probably leaving, in my opinion, Ohio State because they're going to get a superstar. But you've groomed Garrett Nussmeier for a very long time. You're very confident in Garrett Nussmeier. And if you brought a quarterback in, my thought process was it was going to be someone who has a resume kind of like MJ Morris.
This is exactly the type of quarterback I thought they were going to bring in. And look, this is not an endorsement of Garrett Nussmeier, even though I really like Garrett Nussmeier. You can't bring one of these, top profile guys. They're going to want to be like, I need a guaranteed starting spot. You can't guarantee them a starting spot at LSU. You're going to give Garrett Nussmeier every opportunity to win this job. I mean, we talked about guys like this. I mentioned Brendan Sorsby last week, the the freshman transfer from Indiana, similar mold to this guy. Like, numbers don't jump off the page at you, but they've started double-digit games in college. They've had solid numbers, have limited turnovers for the most part. I know MJ Morris had some issues with him this past season, but yeah, a guy in this mold, a guy that has played games, has had experience, but he's not one of those guys that's going to come in and demand a starting spot.
Yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it, but the only thing is I feel like LSU will want to get somebody who's a little different stylistically than Nussmeier. Like they went and got Jaden Daniels when they had guys like Miles Brennan on the team, even going back to when they had like Brandon Harris and they went and got Danny Etling, who was like more static, more pocket passer, right? I see that Morris only has 88 rushing yards this year, so maybe he doesn't fit that mold. But, yeah, they definitely should be active in the portal.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.